Welcome to the Elevate podcast, brought to you by the Registered Master Builders. Each week we explore the ideas and practices that help us get the best from our businesses, our teams and ourselves. I'm your host, Ryan Castle. We talk to experts, advocates and business owners in the construction industry to share their knowledge, insights and experiences to help you build a better business and enjoy a better life. Now let the business building begin. Today on the Elevate Master Builders podcast, I am joined by a couple of renovation fans. I'm joined by Wendy and Bernard Hilhorst, who are recent winners of the Renovation of the Year at the Master Builders House of the Year Awards. Their property that they renovated in Cambridge is quite spectacular, and we'll make sure we put the photos in the show notes for you to see. Welcome to the podcast, Wendy and Bernard. Looks like the two of you have been busy.
A little bit busy.
It's been a hell of a project. Yeah. We were farming probably 40 minutes from here at a little place called Pukeatua, and we farmed there for 35, 40 years. It was a lovely spot, but the kids left home and we sort of needed a change in our life. And then Wendy's always been very interested in the horses and things, and so Wendy spotted this property up for sale.
With a few acres.
And that was sort of, something that Wendy's always been interested in.
Yeah, and you were getting over the dairy farming a little bit, so I needed a challenge really. So that was one of the reasons. The house really drew our attention as well. It was Wendy looked at quite a few properties, and a few of them had modern homes, which we wanted to challenge when we left the farm to do something and not be idle and sitting around. So this property came up, and Bernard could bring his tractor with him.
Yeah, and chainsaw. The house itself had, very good bones. It was a lovely old looking home, but it had been neglected, been rented for quite a few years.
Well, it was getting to a stage where it's 100 years old, and it had a little bit of adding on potentially in the 60s, but then after that, I don't think maybe people thought it was going to be too much to do anything with. But anyway, we took it on.
Yeah, it had a lot of different eras. If you walk through the house, there's no uniformity. There was different windows in different areas and different eras. There was different doors. Yeah. I don't think there was a matching door in the house because of.
But it still had an original character, I think. So yeah.
And is it the older homes that you feel like have more character? Was that part of the draw card for you? You were never going to go and buy a brand new brick and tile kind of vibe?
I don't know. I mean, some of the new houses are amazing, but I think a new house to me is something that I would like to do rather than buy a new house. But buying an old house like this, you can retain a lot of its character and put your own mark on it as well.
Yeah, because of the era of the house, the 1920s, it's some very classical fittings and fixtures and things in it, and we just kind of wanted to retain and emphasise them on the house, didn't we? We just
all the finishing details, around the architraves and
picture rails and things like that around the place. We just some rooms had them, some rooms didn't have them, and it was again no continuity. So we just sort of thought we'd just bring it back to life.
And how hands-on were you guys in the project? Like you said you did a project, Bernard, were you getting up at 4 a.m. like every good dairy farmer does and getting stuck in with the actual building, or what kind of level of hands-on were you guys in the project?
I was never a 4 a.m. riser, but I did, and I think George, the builder, was a little bit alarmed when I said, I'll be on site every day helping out. And he did raise that initially, but no, we get on really well, and I did a lot of the dismantling, preparing before even the builders turned up, a lot of the sort of
destruction,
taking walls out and leaving so that when the builders turned up, they could get straight into it. And I really enjoyed that. It was sort of, it was a good project, a really good project. And the finishing and the finance was all left to the builders. And it was. There were days where we sort of thought, "What the hell is going on?"
Like any good project, it comes with its challenges.
Yeah. There were days, when we had tarpaulins over the roof.
That was pouring.
Pouring of rain, and
I guess the thing too was that we lived on site, like we lived pretty much in the house,
and it wasn't that pleasant.
And when you're thinking about the design of the house, like right from structure in terms of, we're going to keep all the rooms in the same place, so we're going to be taking walls out and relocating, moving the pattern of the house around, was that something you did yourselves? Did you work also with an architect to finalise some of those things? How did that happen?
Well, I was actually working for an architect anyway. I had for a number of years. Probably had a bit of knowledge on design and construction from that basis. Like, we lived in here for probably a year or so before we actually started doing any of the building, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, some of those ideas we just didn't do because it wasn't feasible. Once you live in a property, you realise how it works with the sun and the seasons. So I think that was a really important thing for us to have done, even though we didn't think we were going to at the time.
Yeah.
We were going to come in and just start straight away, but we ended up having to wait. And I think that was a really important part of it because we learned how the house lived effectively.
Yeah. And I think because it was a cold, miserable year, now that we enjoy the house more, the kitchen was a little gully kitchen and only one person could be in there. And so now, we really do appreciate the new design and how the house is. It's just so different than what it was originally.
And a bit different to how we thought we were going to do it as well.
In photos of the finished property, and it's just incredible, and we'll make sure you put those in the show notes so people can jump in and have a look. I was struck by the oven, and there I'm thinking that must be some epic dinner parties you can have with that many burners on that hob. You must be able to cook for a couple of hundred with that one.
The kitchen is our favourite place. Yeah. The kitchen and the outdoor area, it flows really nicely now.
On the island, the kitchen island is massive because Wendy sort of drew up the kitchen and she got it, and I saw that size of the island she was proposing, and I thought, that is rather large.
But the room takes it. I mean, it's proportionate to the room that it takes it, and why not?
Yeah, it works really well. We had a family gathering here last weekend. There's 40-odd people. Yeah, it was lovely. It was really nice to have everybody around.
And take us back to when you were selecting a construction company to work with. You ended up working with George at GD Pringle and his team. What was your thinking ahead of meeting? How did you go through that selection process of finding a registered master builder to work with?
We did actually get a couple of builders in, didn't we? It's a Sacco house. George he came in and met us, and we went through what we wanted, and he kind of got it. He just kind of I think,
you could see the
same as what we could see. He was on the same page, whereas a couple of others hadn't been on the same page. They had other ideas, which was always good to have other ideas, but it's also nice to have a builder with the same ideas.
The actual what it would cost, we didn't expect a quote.
Well, not a fixed and hard.
Because of being a reno, you don't know what you're going to get sometimes. It was a very flexible arrangement.
He gave us a good ball figure.
And he was very transparent. Once it started, the renovation started, every couple of weeks there was a sort of
weekly updates and
all the invoices, everything came in.
Yeah.
So it was a very transparent process.
And plus George got you as an unpaid apprentice on site doing the...
It was a good thing. I really enjoyed working with Tom. Tom was the foreman, and he's kind of old school. He's a young man, but he's an old school tradesman, and he was very good.
And they were all very respectful of us because we were living here as well. Very respectful of our spaces, I suppose, which was really good with project management as far as having tradesmen, materials, whatever was needed on site when it was required.
Because it was such a big project, we could move, if there was a shortage of jib or things like that, we could move and do something else in another area of the house, or we could work somewhere else. And it was kind of, it did work. It was, there was no major hold-ups with that, considering there was a lot of shortages of materials. It was
just the lockdowns. If we had a lockdown, stop things. But we were a little fortunate, actually, with the lockdowns because we had our son home. He'd come back from overseas, and he's an electrician, so that worked really well too.
Yeah. So that was a 3-week lockdown. Yeah, we basically wired the house. Yeah, got everything ready well, and the timing was perfect for no builders on site, and the electricians could go for it.
When you're taking on a project like this, trying to balance the historical charm of a house and yet also make it new and modern, how did you kind of think about that, achieving balance in those two?
We did think about it a lot, actually, because we didn't want it to look an obvious renovation. Like we used timber joinery, double glazed, of course, but we put timber joinery back into the house. And we tried to retain the finishing details, like around picture rails and things like that.
The stuck on finish.
Stuck on finish. We found some very good tradesmen who could do the stucco. George found those.
But it was, to walk around the house, it's really nice to have to point out to people what's new and what's old, because it's not a lot of it's not obvious. It's quite difficult to see, like the front porch addition to the front of the house, we mirrored. There is original back porch on the other side of the house, but on the front end of the house, there was no porch. So we basically sort of said to the builders, what we want is mirror what's on the other side of the house and build a new porch on the front. And it's
just realigned a few things just to make it a little more symmetrical and kind of appealing, but not obviously
new. Conservatory and the portico, it's all sort of built new, but it's
using old, like stucco and
stucco to make it look old. And it's it's really great, because people they came here and they look at it and they go, what's new and what's old and what was here. And it's nice that it's not obvious.
And you've been very successful from an awards perspective. Did you leave any awards for anyone else to win at the House of the Year? It feels like you guys did the swoop. National category winners, top 100 awards, regional supreme renovation of the year, regional gold award. If awards are somewhat of a marker of a successful project, you've done exceptionally well. What was that like for you guys winning the awards like that?
We appreciate them, obviously, but yeah, it's just we did it because the house deserves it, we felt. We did the renovation to hopefully the house will stand proud for another 100 years, and it needed a lot of love, and that's...
The house has always been a very notable house. You talk to anybody and they describe where we live. Everybody knows the house because it was on the old state highway. It's been a notable house, and it was a rather grand house in its day.
I think there'd been a dance hall in here back in the day and a dressmaker thing.
And the Queen visit. Rumour has it she was in the Cambridge, Tiamutu, Hamilton area in 1953 when a royal visit, and she came in the house and squeezed the lemon here and
had a rest stop.
I mean, what we're saying is she put the garnish in the G&T that she had while she was there, right? That's what we meant.
Yeah. Nettie powdered her nose.
Yeah. But that's a wee story that came from a local who drove past when we were doing some outside work, actually, with a digger. She knew the digger driver, and she rang him that night and she asked him why he was at his house. And so that was the story of the Queen coming here.
Possible, she'd possibly need a wardrobe change or something like that.
And I guess this house would have been one of the more well-known houses. And as far as the awards go, I mean, it is a great way of I guess, showing the builders how
the skill. I think Georges and his team deserve the recognition. We sort of came up with the ideas and they put it together.
Yeah.
Sounds like a very humble approach. I'm sure it was very much a team effort across the board from both the construction team and yourselves. Reflecting back on this project, is there anything you'd do differently if you had your time again?
But I guess everyone's situation would be different with renovations anyway. We were lucky. We did have I suppose you could say. We had the shed with some facilities in it that we could go to. Saved money from not renting with that, but we're pretty happy with how it's ended.
It's been a great result, and 90% of the time I've enjoyed it. There were days where there was,
Oh, yeah, there's days like when your kitchen disappears when you don't know and you come home from work and where am I going to cook? But you look at the big picture at the end of the day, that's what you're working for, so...
But initially when we bought the house, quite a few people who saw the house or purchased it were quite sceptical. Our son, he was heading off overseas just before we bought the house, and he's the electrician. And we walked him through the house and sort of said, what do you think? And I think his parting last words were, if you buy this property, don't expect me to work on with a few expletives on there.
I think it's because it's concrete. It's not the easiest to work with, but went off overseas, based in London, and he did a lot of concrete work over there.
He was well trained by the time he was locked down.
Yeah. And I think he quite enjoyed it in the end.
Yeah.
Quite together, and it was quite good working with James.
You said at the beginning of the podcast, Bernard, that you really needed a project to keep you busy, idle hands, all those kind of good things. This project is complete, so are you ready to do the next renovation, or is there a different project in the wings?
I don't think this is ever complete. I'm not sure if I do want to. Well, I really enjoy living here, and I wouldn't mind taking on another we wouldn't mind taking on another project, but I don't think it would be as big as this one.
Well, you never know. Never say never.
What was the duration, full project, end to end? I know it's not ultimately finished ever, but core project, how long did that take?
The core project, 1st of May 2021, they started here.
The builder started 1st of May, but I think there was a lot of applications for consents, finding a builder, and
But it would have been 18 months.
18 months of builders on site, basically, with a pandemic in the middle. Not bad.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a pretty healthy timeline given what you managed to achieve. And I know earlier we talked about some spaces in the house that you enjoy. The kitchen got a good mention. Is there anything else particularly that you're very proud of or that's a real standout for you?
The portico, I really enjoy. We use it so often, sit outside in the summertime with breakfast, wine in the evening, lunch in the middle. It's a really nice place to sit.
Yeah, that was not on our initial plans, the portico area, but it works really well.
Right. So is there any possibility that the next project on the property will be a show jumping arena?
Absolutely.
I've been trying to discourage this for quite some time. And
Sorry, Bernard. I don't think I've been helping here.
that's because our daughters come home. I've been outvoted. I have a 49% vote, and now I think it's dropped down to about 33% vote of what goes on here.
I'm not sure you were ever at 49 either. You might have been led to believe you were, but
Look at where you are. Yeah, so there will be a few things happening.
if someone else was taking on this kind of project, what would you say to them?
Don't have hard and fast sort of expectations.
But I think you have to be flexible. There were a lot of decisions had to be made kind of as we went along. So yeah, with just different finishes, we put in some wainscoting or the panelled wall features in places that we hadn't really thought about. So as you go, you sort of realise, you might need to make a decision on that.
Sometimes I had to wait for Wendy to come home for lunch to have a decision made. But generally, there was a lot of decisions made on the hoof.
You didn't wait for me to come home for lunch to decide when the kitchen got removed.
Oh, that's right. I did review the kitchen without permission.
I feel like that was a bad idea. Oh, that's great. Look, thank you both for sharing a bit of your journey. It sounds like a really great outcome and a great partnership between yourself and the GD Pringle Building team. So that's always a great story to hear. I think it sounds like open communication and your willingness to be flexible, always super helpful from a construction team perspective when you're dealing with owners. So congratulations on the beautiful house you have built, and well done. And look forward to having you back on the show when the show jumping arena is done.
Thank you very much.